Hey, what's going on, everybody? Boilon here, back for another video on Raid Shadow Legends. And in today's video, we're going to be continuing our little bit of a new player video series, I suppose, because we've had a lot of new players joining Raid Shadow Legends, especially here on the Boilon channel lately. And I kind of want to give back to that early community. I'm not by no means a veteran player. I've been playing for about 10 months. But I think there's a lot of things that people don't fully realize. And in today's video, we're going to be talking all about masteries and breaking those down. There are a lot of characters in the game, of course, and a lot of different ways that you can build masteries. But there's also a lot of similarities in kind of explaining these, the general mastery trend that you want to go for. And I do want to kind of make a little bit of a reference for the Hell Hades website, which is very helpful for general grinds. But there are some things that I would change on each of the characters once you kind of understand the masteries a little bit better. So that's what we're going to be covering here today. But before we get started with that, I do want to remind people that if you haven't started a new account, or if you want to start a new account, or make an alt account with the brand new reworked Narma the Returned, use the QR code in the top right hand of the screen. And you can also use these three epics along your journey: Ugo, Tagore, and my favorite, Deacon Armstrong, at accounts level 15, 30, and 40. And don't forget to use this promo code for Tholen Foulbeard. Amazing, legendary dwarf DPS. Use the promo code Demon Slayer within the first 48 hours of a brand new account. And that's actually where we're going to start here. So we're going to start with Tholen. Now, he is one of my most powerful DPS champions in my roster. He was originally the fusion event for June, but now has been made available through a promo code. And honestly, he's a really great character to start with in pretty much any new account. So I want to talk about how I build him, but specifically from the aspect of masteries. Now, just to kind of showcase the difference here, I want to so before we go into what I have, I do want to go online, and there is the Hell Hades website. This is really good. Huge database of tons of stuff. Now, I'm just going to type in Tholen in the top right. There's a character page, basically, for every single character in Raid Shadow Legends, and I want to compare what his is. You know what? It's criminal. He should be a 4.5 stars. But there you go. Some of the ratings for the characters, do not take them for gospel. Some of them are a bit outdated, or it really just depends on their specific usage in certain game modes. But honestly, I find that Tholen is useful in almost every single dungeon and place that you can use him. He is really good. But anyways, I want to jump down to not blessings, to masteries. Now, on the Hell Hades website, there's generally going to be a different section. There's going to be like a general PvE, you're going to have a nuker, some PvP stuff. I would typically, as a new player, disregard almost all the PvP stuff. This is not relevant for most players, right? So if you are on the Hell Hades website and you are looking at how to, mastery your characters, I would, depending on the character, I would generally go the general PvE, right? Especially in the early game, this is important. But the nuker is also good as well, especially for well-known DPS champions like Tholen. So I want to kind of see. I think we have very similar masteries now. I think maybe I took the nuker route. Maybe I took the general PvE. I kind of forget. I think I went general PvE. Let's see. So I did win the general PvE. But the main difference here, actually, I'm going to tell you the similarities. This is basically what I will say is 90% of all Raid Shadow Legends champions are going to have basically this left-hand side of the master tree. And I am just going to remove my my cam box here just so you can see behind me a little bit better, especially towards the corner of this. That basically everyone is going to go the same way. Now, you're going to want to pick up the crit rate 5%. This is really important. And then the crit damage of plus 10%. Every single champion, like pretty much like all of my champions, go the same way on the offense tree. You go for this one, you go for the crit damage. Oh, sorry, wrong button. You go for the crit damage, and then you typically will also pick up this one as well. Increase damage by 5% when attacking with full HP. I mean, in a lot of instances, you probably will be full HP, so that's a pretty big boost. And then you're going to go for this one, damage inflicted to targets with less than 40 HP, for 40% by 8%. All this is going to add up. And now this is where things vary a little bit. Some nukers will go for Whirlwind of Death, which increases your speed by 6 for each enemy killed by this champion. And also, like, if this is in wave, Doom Tower, dungeons, things like that, if you kill anyone in a wave, that'll add up to about 18, especially on your big nukers by the time you get to the boss. So maybe I should probably have that. But Tholen doesn't need to have insane speed. I do actually like the kind of lifesteal here as well, which is not too bad if he's a bit under 50% HP. Every little bit help. 5% on how much damage these guys can put out is actually a decent amount of hit points, so it adds up. I have Cycle of Violence, so because he hits so hard, basically he has a 30% chance of decreasing his cooldowns on a random skill by 1 turn if he does, basically, if he exceeds 30% of the target's max HP. Again, in wave kind of content, this is likely going to happen because Tholen hits very hard. Then we get some more additional damage down here for 6%, and then we get this, which is the default skill. So the A1 will go up by 2% every time it's used, across battles, and stacks across each round up to 10%, right? So for longer fights, this is going to really make a big difference in terms of the damage. And then this one here is, it's okay, but if depending on where you're using it, you're getting 6% increase in arena and siege, 3% in other locations, but this can stack up to 12% for every enemy killed. This is basically going to stack with the other one with well, basically by doing methodical, I suppose, over there, but also with stack with Whirlwind of Death. So that's a pretty nice one there. And this is where things get interesting. So the vast majority of characters, like 99% of your characters, including your support and everything like that, are going to have War Master. Because even if they're not a DPS champion, you can get more damage out of your character by having War Master on there. So a 60% chance of inflicting bonus damage when attacking, and that's equal to 10% of the target's champion's max health. Now, if it's a boss, it only does 4%. So there is a cap of how much damage War Master can do, but it is going to add a significant amount of extra damage and has a 60% chance. Now, in the early game, I would also recommend War Master for characters like Tholen. But once you get to the mid game, and mid game for me is like stage 20 dungeons plus, hard dungeons, Hydra, Chimera, this kind of content, Doom Tower hard, that you kind of want to switch over to Helm Smasher for main DPS champions. So like Tholen and other big nukers, because this is going to have a 50% chance of ignoring 25% of the target's defense. I can't stress how important this is because defense starts stacking up pretty high in like later content and higher stages and higher level enemies. This is equivalent to basically a 4-set of Savage, or a 4-set gear set of Savage, or Lethal, or any of these other ignore ones. So it's pretty significant, and it can also stack with that stuff as well. If there's any parts of the kit, of your character's kit, that has ignore defense, it stacks as well. So this is really, really good to have. The other ones, the only time that you would really want to have Giant Slayer is if you're having, I would say, like characters with 3+ attacks in their kit, on their A1 or whatever, where Giant Slayer would be better than War Master. Basically, you're just deciding between War Master and Giant Slayer, but really only if you have a character that has lots of attacks that you would want to actually do that. Most of these other ones, just you don't want. There's a lot of kind of garbage or useless masteries here in the offense tree, so it's just not really relevant, or some of them are very specific to PvP, which honestly, for what we're talking about here, is not really that relevant. We're more in the aspect of PvE. Helm Smasher is something that is also very strong in PvP, but it's something that's really good to have on nukers like Tholen. Some other characters, I'm going to bring myself back. Where am I? I need a faster way to bring this back. Here is me. Okay. What does my Mikey have? So my Mikey actually still has War Master. At this point, I think I'm probably going to have to redo his masteries to Helm Smasher, because I'm basically at the point where, yeah, I'm using I think the reason why I had this was because he's assisting so much from the turtles, and I think those assists do trigger the War Master mastery. I'm not an expert in the turtles by any means, but as far as Mikey is a nuker, and so that's probably why I would want Helm Smasher. So I really need to look this up more as far as the assists go in terms of what was going to bring more overall damage. The other point that I want to make for Tholen specifically, because if those are the characters that you're going to be using, is whether or not, like I'm telling you, like 99% of your characters are going to have, I'm just going to go through all of my characters here. They all have the offense tree, right? And they're all pretty much, except for Fabian, because I use him specifically mostly for PvP now. But by and large, the vast majority of your characters are going to have War Master or Helm Smasher. That's just it. Even my support characters, my Estra Dreamsong also has War Master. Senna has War Master. All my characters have like that for the most part. Except for my very, very early characters like Islin, who I, haven't remastered in forever. It was like a month 1 character that I made, and I made a mistake there. But otherwise, everyone pretty much, if they're a nuker, they're having Helm Smasher. Any other character, War Master, War Master, War Master, Helm Smasher, War Master, right? You get the point. So going back to Tholen. Okay, so for him, I have defensive. You want to choose between defense or support, basically as your second tree. And that's going to depend on the character and your role. Now, the reason why I went defense for Tholen is because of this one, this retribution here down on the second to last tier. So 50% chance to counterattack when this champion loses 25% of their max HP or more from a single target, a single skill. Now, this is really strong because he has an A1 that is AoE. So basically, if he takes a little bit too much damage, wow, he's gonna counterattack. And this can be, even in arena, this can be very helpful before his turn even takes place, right? If he survives, but he loses enough HP to counterattack, that can do a lot of damage. There's also some ways to kind of mitigate damage, right? There's some ways to lower his total damage taken. So this one here, basically, oh, there's some server maintenance. Hey, in the middle of my recording, damage reduction stacks up to 6% for each enemy, basically when he takes damage from a specific enemy. So this is gonna. Some nukers are very squishy. Tholen's a little bit squishy, and so I like to kind of increase his survivability. I don't really need some of the stuff from support. A lot of, if your characters are debuffers, you're going to want to have the support tree. But for otherwise, this is just other ways for me to mitigate my damage in terms of, especially this one, decrease damage received from AoE attacks by 5%, which is a lot of bosses. Basically, every boss has most bosses have AoE attacks. I don't know if there is any that don't. So that's a pretty big thing there, and a little bit of additional defense. Now, as far as characters for the support tree, and a lot of them do, like I want to show you my Esther Dream Song and some of the big masteries in the support tree over here. So starting on this one, this is typically what you want for all debuffers, which is the first one on the right. Pinpoint accuracy is just a flat accuracy 10. Now, if you have any healer characters, and especially healers that scale with max HP, then you might want to take this. And especially if your healers do not have any debuffs. If they're just solely defensive characters, support characters that have buffs but no debuffs, you'd want to pick Steadfast instead. You don't need accuracy, right? If you're not doing any debuffs, you don't need accuracy. Now, if you do have if you do have debuffs, then you'd want to pick up Charged Focus in the second row, which increases your accuracy by 20 when this champion has no skills on cooldown. This is basically your turn one, essentially, when you're doing it right away. So this is important to note as well. And then some other ones for kind of more defensive support. You're going to get, if they have any shields, you might want to go from Steadfast to the shield one, and then to the heal one as well, Lay on Hands, if you have a healer-based character. As far as Exalt on Death, it's not something that you really want to waste on. Now, going forward onto row 3 with accuracy or debuff champions, Swarm Smiter, I don't know why I said Sitter, Swarm Smiter, increase accuracy by 4 for each enemy alive, stacks up to 16. So typically there's going to be 4 enemies in wave content. Hydra as well, right? That's an extra 16 accuracy. So all this is going to help you get to your goal. Sometimes I've run with this, but has a 30% chance of increasing the turn meter by 10% when a debuff expires. Now, the problem is this doesn't always happen that frequently. I think this is most likely going to happen in boss content, right? Typically in waves when you're doing, they're going to die in 1 or 2 turns anyway, so this just is not going to trigger. It could trigger on like clan boss and things like that, in longer term fights. Rapid response has a 30% chance of increase, basically the exact same thing, but for buffs. So if you have a support-based character, you probably should do it. Why I didn't do both, I think probably for Estrid anyways, is because I wanted the accuracy. And then I wanted to make sure I had turn meter gain on mine from the buff side of things, rather than the debuff side of things. So I think they're similar, right? Sometimes you could get both, but if you're an accuracy-based champion, you should really make sure you pick up Swarm Smiter. And then there's this one here that's just more healing and shields and stuff like that if you have a very defensive support-based character. That's really important to note there. The next row, Lore of Steel. Pretty much everyone should pick this up, in my opinion. So all of your artifact sets that give plus stats, this is going to increase the amount of stats that you're getting from that, just a flat amount by doing this. So the increase is multiplicative, not additive. So that's kind of important to note. Now, this is one mastery that I really want to point out, and this is going to be more towards later game content and end game content. So there is a boss in Cursed City called Amius, and he punishes anyone who has Cycle of Magic, because he'll basically do a big nuke on your characters if you decrease cooldowns on your skills. So Cycle of Magic is like doomsday for you on Amius. And for that reason, I try to avoid any serious characters that I'm building from using Cycle of Magic. Why does Estrid still have it? Well, I don't really use her in Amius, but also I haven't fixed her masteries in some time. So any of the new characters that I start to build now, I don't take Cycle of Magic just in case I end up using them there on the final boss in Cursed City. It's super punishing that they've even done this, but I just wanted to point people out on this one. Now, if you're more defensive, again, we have more amounts of healing and shield, so that's a pretty no-brainer there. Evil Eye, this you could take or not take, and the reason why is because there's certain bosses that actually punish you for decreasing turn meter. Sand Devil's Necropolis, and also a Scarab, sorry, not Scarab King, Bommel, the bomb, the guy who drops the bombs in Doom Tower and in Cursed City, because if you turn bar rewind them at all, he drops another bomb. And so I kind of shy away from using Evil Eye, and I kind of take typically these two in the middle, but it depends on the champion. Maybe I'll just take the one. Maybe I'll just take Lore of Steel and take two on the offensive side instead, depending on the character. I try to stay away from Cycle of Magic these days. I think the reason why I did take Cycle of Magic was because I wanted this final row here, which is Lasting Gifts for buffers, because it has a 30% chance to extend the duration of buffs by +1. So when you apply your 2-turn buff or your 3-turn buffs, you could sometimes get +1. So you could get like a 3 or 4-turn buff, which is very, very impactful. There's a couple of buffs that it doesn't apply to, but by and large, this is really good for any support buffers, like I did for Estrid. And there is the negative debuff side of things as well, which I did not take for her. I prefer the buffer side of things, but a lot of debuffers are going to want to take Master Hexer, which is basically doing the exact same thing, but when you apply debuffs, you can get +1 turns on that, which could be very impactful, again, for any of your control or debuff-based champions. So make sure that you grab that along the support tree. So did I miss out? Sniper? Some of these things are really not that big. Spirit Haste is kind of nice, depending on what you're going to do. What I would have loved to do, what I should have done actually, was I should not have taken Spirit Haste, and I should have gone Master. I'm going to fix her mastery, so I would want to take Lasting Gifts and Master Hexer for Estrid Dreamsong. So it really depends on the character's kit. There is a few instances where I have taken Eagle Eye, which is an additional flat accuracy +50. I've done that on my Fabian because I use him solely in PvP, and I've also done it on Calvalax, who is one of my poisoners. He places like 4 poisons on literally at the start of the fight, because if I don't land my stuff, then I need to basically max as much accuracy as I can. So that's why I have done that rather than the offensive tree, because I don't use them long enough in PvE for any of this stuff to matter, and they're not DPS champions. The rest of them, very, very niche, max HP 3000, not really worth it. And some of these other ones you just really don't want to take. So you typically don't go all the way to the end of the support tree. You typically don't go all the way to the end of the defense tree either, frankly, for resist 50. Niche as well increases the chance of placing, these debuffs by 5%. We have decreased damage all allies received by 5%. But then that champion takes it instead. It'd have to be like a super, super big beefy tank for you to even want to do that. But even then, you typically would be taking War Master to put out more damage in the PvE side of things. So, very rarely are you actually going to the end of either the defense or support tree. Those are kind of the supporting masteries to the offense page. Like I said, 99% you're going to be taking something from the offense all the way to the end. And then you're going to be using one of these two to be able to kind of finish things off there, depending on if you're more of a buffer or a debuffer, or what you have in your kit is really important. So, it's really important what your role is, right? If you're debuffer, you want to go more on the right-hand side of the accuracy of the support tree. And then if you're more of a buffer, you would take the left side of the support tree, right? For example, let's say, who do I have this like pure buffer? Senna? Oh, I didn't even go for that, right? I actually went into the defense tree for survivability. Furil the Barkhorn. Right, I guess he's mixed. Okay, he's mixed. Cardial? Cardial's like pure. Yeah, he's pure left side. Okay, so that's an example of that, who has no debuffs, right? So I just wanted to share this with you guys. There is sometimes some confusion about how to build your characters, and I hope that maybe explaining each of the masteries and what I typically do with my characters helped you guys a little bit to understand that. Otherwise, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. But before we go, I do want to remind people that if you haven't started playing Raid yet, what are you waiting for? Download using the QR code in the top right to get the recently reworked Narma the Returned, amazing poison champion there for your Demon Lord progression, and 3 amazing epics along your journey: Ugo, Tagore, and my favorite, Deacon Armstrong, at levels 15, 30, and 40. And don't forget to use the promo code Demon Slayer to get Thol and Falbeard absolutely free within the first 48 hours of a brand new account. That's going to be it for me, everybody, and I'll see you guys all on the next video. And if you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and you'll be greatly helping out the channel. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the next one.